Vienna, 1894, just as the imperial waltz echoed through Hofburg's marble halls, the emperor's youngest daughter slipped out a side door and into the quiet hush of the servants' corridor. She moved quickly, lifting the hem of her ivory satin gown so it wouldn't brush against the soot-dusted floor. Her gloved fingers clutched a folded card, one of the many invitations sent to her for the winter masquerade, but this one had a hidden note, slipped beneath the flap by someone who didn't belong at court. Someone who had no right to write such words. Someone who made her breath catch when he bowed too low and smiled too wide. Saphira Alden was 18, the third daughter of Franz Joseph I, and she had never been in love. Not until 3 weeks ago, when the new jester with the uneven sleeves and golden brown eyes made her laugh during a state dinner just as she was about to cry. They called him August Hale. No title. No land. No family she could find in the volumes of peerage. He juggled apples, danced on tables, and told stories that had the dowager duchesses gasping for breath. But he also watched her with quiet, serious eyes when no one else was looking, eyes that once lingered too long on the bruise on her wrist after her fencing lesson, eyes that now haunted her every step. She pushed open the door to the old music room. It was disused, tucked behind the chapel, where no one but ghosts and mice lingered. But August stood there, waiting in the half-light. His usual motley was gone, replaced by a simple gray shirt and dark trousers tucked into worn boots. He looked taller without the bells. "I shouldn't have come," she whispered, closing the door behind her. "I know," he said. "But you did." She stepped forward, the lace of her skirts brushing the warped wood, the silence between them thick like fog over the Danube. "I read your note." He nodded. "I meant every word." "You said I was seen," she said, voice cracking. "No one ever says that." "Not really." August looked down, then back at her. "You're always surrounded by lace and diamonds and people who want something. But I see you, Saphira. I see the girl who watches the guards train at dawn. The one who hides poetry in her sleeves. The one who stayed behind to help the stable boy when his brother died." "You shouldn't have seen any of that," she said. "But I did. And I would again." She took a step closer. "Do you know what they'll do to you if they find out?" "Yes." "Then why are you here?" "Because I'd rather die than pretend I don't care about you." She stopped, air frozen in her lungs. The sound of a distant violin drifted through the stone walls. "You can't say that," she whispered. "Not to me." "I just did." She reached out before she could think better of it and touched his hand, bare, calloused, warm. He didn't move. Neither of them did. Then footsteps. She jerked back as the door creaked open. A young footman blinked at her, surprised. "Your Highness, the Empress is asking for you. She says you're late for the cotillion." "I tripped on the stairs," she said quickly. "Tell her I'm changing my shoes." The footman hesitated, then bowed and left. When the door clicked shut, August exhaled. "Go." "I don't want to. I'll be here tomorrow. Same time." "Why?" "Because you'll come." And she did. For 3 nights, they met in silence. No words, just glances, sometimes touches his hand brushing her sleeve as she passed, her fingers lingering on his shoulder when he bowed too low in the great hall. But on the 4th night, the music room was empty. Instead, she found a folded letter on the windowsill. It was in his hand. "They're sending me away. The Archduke saw us. I am to leave for the southern provinces at dawn. There is no trial. No appeal. I'm just gone." Saphira read it 3 times, the paper trembling in her hands. Then she ran. She didn't change. She didn't care. She sprinted through the halls, past guards and startled maids, down to the servants' courtyard where the carriages waited for dawn departures. She found him standing beside a plain black coach, his wrists bound with cord, a soldier on either side. "Stop," she cried. The guards froze. August turned, shocked. "Unbind him," she shouted. "He is under my protection." You have no authority here, princess, one of the guards said. I am the daughter of the emperor, she snapped. Unbind him or face his wrath. They hesitated. Then one stepped forward and cut the cords with a blade. August rubbed his wrists, blinking at her. She took his hand. Come with me. To where? Anywhere. They didn't run far, just to the stables. She knew the tunnels beneath them, the ones carved centuries ago to hide carriages from invading armies. One led to the river. One led to the old hunting lodge in the woods. They took the second. By dawn, they were miles from Vienna, soaked in rain, shivering in wool cloaks she'd stolen from the armory. They lit a fire in the hearth of the abandoned lodge. It had belonged to her great-grandfather. No one came here anymore. As August pulled off his wet boots, he winced. You're limping, she said. They hit me. She knelt beside him. Where? He didn't answer. Just looked at her. You really would have left without saying goodbye? I thought it would be easier for you. It wouldn't. He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. I love you, he said quietly. She closed her eyes. Say it again. I love you. She opened them. Then stay. I'll be killed if we go back. We won't go back, she said. We'll go forward. He looked at her, disbelief flickering in his eyes. I'm not afraid, she said. Not with you. He kissed her then soft, sure, like a promise. And in the grey light of morning, they made their plan. They would leave Austria. Through Hungary, then across to the Adriatic. She had jewels hidden in her riding boots. He had a cousin in Trieste. But first, they had to outsmart the men who would chase them. And Saphira knew they would come. Not just for him. But for her. Because she was the emperor's daughter. And she had just vanished with the court jester. The fire in the hunting lodge had burned low, reduced to a pulse of red coals beneath the grate. Morning mist clung to the latticed windows, and the scent of damp pine filtered through the cracked shutters. Saphira knelt beside the hearth, her gown darkened from the night's rain, her fingers curled around a strip of linen she was winding around August's ankle. His skin was bruised along the joint, but not broken. You should have said it was worse, she murmured, knotting the bandage with care. I didn't want to waste time complaining when we barely had time to breathe. You still should have said something. August leaned against the stone wall, the corner of his mouth twitching with something quiet, not amusement, but something almost wistful. I didn't expect you to know how to bind a sprain. Saphira stood, brushing her damp palms on her cloak. I watched the royal surgeon tend to the guards after drills. No one notices a girl who doesn't speak. August studied the ashes for a long moment. What else have you learned while no one noticed? She crossed to a rusted cabinet and opened it. Inside were 2 tin plates, a cracked teacup, and a glass flask half full of something amber. She took the cup and poured a little of the liquid, sniffed it, and winced. That sherry's older than both of us, she said. But it'll keep us warm. He accepted the cup from her without a word. Their fingers touched briefly, just skin on skin this time, no silk or gloves between them. You've never had to leave anything behind before, have you? He asked, voice low. I've left everything behind now. That's not what I meant. Saphira sat beside him on the floor, back against the cold stone. Her braid had come half undone, wisps of hair curling at her neck. I used to pretend I was someone else, she said, watching the fire's glow dance across the hearth. Not a princess. Just a girl in the palace kitchens. I'd imagine what it would be like to have a name no one recognized. To walk outside alone. To choose who I loved. August turned the cup in his hands but didn't drink. And now you've done it. She nodded once. And it's terrifying. They didn't speak for a while. The wind pressed against the shutters, and somewhere far off, a bird called high and shrill. We'll need to move before dusk, August said at last. The guards won't search the forest until they've checked the train stations. There's a stream behind the lodge, she said. It leads to a mill road. If we follow it, we can reach the post-carriage route by nightfall. Do you know where it goes? No, she said. But it doesn't go back. He looked at her then, eyes darker in the morning light, not with fear but with something steadier. I keep thinking this is a dream I'm not supposed to have. She reached for his hand. You're not a dream. You're the only real thing I've ever chosen. He opened his palm, revealing a silver button with the imperial crest. This fell from your sleeve last night. She took it gently, folding it into her fist. Keep it. I don't need proof, he said. It's not for proof. It's for luck. They began to pack as the sun lifted behind the trees. She found an old wool cloak in the trunk by the bed, and August secured a small satchel with dried oats, a blunt penknife, and the remains of the sherry. They didn't speak as they left the lodge. The silence between them wasn't heavy, it was made of something shared now. Behind them, the smoke rose in a thin ribbon above the treetops. The forest was still damp from the night's storm. Branches snapped underfoot, and the air smelled of moss and loam. Saphira's boots borrowed from the armory were too large, and her feet ached with every step, but she said nothing. By late afternoon, the stream widened, and they came upon a pasture edged with wild rye. A crumbling fence lined the far side beyond it, a narrow road curved into the hills. August held her arm to stop her. He pointed to the ridge above. A man on horseback was silhouetted against the pale sky, motionless. Saphira didn't breathe. After a moment, the horse turned, and the figure disappeared behind the trees. They're close, August said quietly. We can lose them if we reach the river by nightfall. There's a risk they'll check the ferries. Then we go upstream. Wait for the markets to close. Find someone willing to trade silence for coin. He looked at her sharply. You planned all of this. I had to. They crossed the field as the sun dipped behind the hills. Saphira's cloak caught on a briar, tearing along the hem. She didn't stop. By nightfall, they reached the riverbank. The water glinted in the moonlight, slow and thick with silt. A lone barge was moored at the far end, its sail furled. August crouched low. That's a freight barge. Grain, maybe. If we offer enough, they might hide us among the sacks. Saphira pulled a small pouch from beneath her belt. Inside were 6 pearls and a ring set with a garnet. It's all I brought. It's enough. They approached the boat in silence. A man emerged from the cabin, lantern raised. He was old, with a stoop in his back and a thick accent Saphira didn't recognize. August spoke first, careful and firm. We need passage. Quietly. Just until the next port. The man eyed them both, then the pouch in Saphira's hand. Why? Because we have nowhere else to go, she said. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once and turned away. They climbed aboard. As the barge slipped into the current, Saphira leaned against the railing, wind brushing her cheek. August stood beside her, silent. I don't know where this will end, she said. He looked at her, steady. Wherever it does, I'll be there. And for the first time since they'd fled, she believed it. The barge rocked gently beneath a woolen dusk, the shoreline fading into blurred silhouettes as they drifted deeper into the heartland. Smoke from the small stove in the captain's cabin curled into the air, sharp with peat. Inside the hold, wedged between burlap sacks heavy with barley, Saphira sat on a folded blanket, her knees drawn close, eyes fixed on a sliver of moonlight seeping through the hatch. August knelt beside a crate, carving a notch into a flat piece of driftwood. She watched the care in his hands, the steadiness in his shoulders that had once been hidden beneath motley and jest. You've done this before, she said. He didn't look up. Not exactly. But I've hidden more times than I've performed. Saphira tilted her head. Not for love, though. He paused, the blade still against the wood. No. Never for love. She reached toward the lantern, adjusting its wick lower. Where did you go, before the palace. August set the knife down and leaned back against the crate. South of Graz. A village with more sheep than people. My father was a cooper. My mother spun flax. I left after the fire. What happened? Someone left the distillery door open during a storm. She waited. I was 16. I made it out. They didn't. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was shared. She reached into the satchel and handed him a dried fig, the last from their store. They never told me where they found you, she said. Because they didn't. I found them. Your palace needed laughter. I needed coin. I made my way through the kitchens until someone noticed. And still you stayed. He smiled faintly, but it softened as quickly as it came. You were there. Saphira turned back to the hatch. The guards will search ins by now. And the ports. I know. Then we need to disappear before dawn. There's a hamlet near Maribor. I know a priest there. He owes me more than one favor. Would he hide us? He'd marry us. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't answer right away. August shifted. Only if you want it. Only if you say the word. I do, she said, her voice steady. But not in hiding. Not afraid. He nodded slowly. Then we wait. The barge moored before first light, tethered to the bank by a low willow. The captain never asked their names. He handed August a flour sack with 2 coarse loaves and a flask of goat's milk, then gestured southward, where a narrow road wound through frost-covered fields. They walked until the sun rose behind them, dragging long shadows across the pale earth. Saphira's boots blistered her heels, and August's limp worsened, but neither spoke of pain. Near midday, they came upon a woman mending a fence, her apron dusted with ash. She eyed them warily until Saphira greeted her in Slovenian, halting but clear. The woman pointed them toward a path behind the orchard, one that led through the trees to a covered bridge. They won't expect us to cross into Styria on foot, August murmured as they passed under the wooden beams. I'm counting on that. On the other side, the land rose into low hills. They followed a stream bed until the sky turned the color of pewter and the first snow began to fall in slow, deliberate flakes. When they reached the chapel, it was nearly dusk. It was a squat stone thing, roof sagging, bell missing. But smoke curled from its chimney, and August knocked once before opening the door. Inside, the warmth hit like a second skin. A hunched man with a white beard looked up from his writing desk and blinked. August Hale, he said after a moment. I thought you were dust. I'm not. And I need your help. The priest looked at Saphira, then back at August. This isn't a favor. This is a war you're dragging into my chapel. Saphira stepped forward. No. It's a vow. The priest studied her mud-streaked hem, red-rimmed eyes, the faint gold thread still clinging to her collar. You're the missing one, he said quietly. I'm no one's prisoner. He rubbed his temples. There will be patrols. Dogs. Men who ask questions with iron. We know. The priest hesitated, then gestured toward the small altar beneath the cracked stained glass. If it's a vow, then speak it while you still can. They stood before the altar, the only light a flickering candelabra stained with tallow. August took her hands in his, rough against royal softness. I never planned to stay, he said. But then you made leaving feel like forgetting who I was. She held his gaze, steady. I was born into a cage, Saphira said. But you showed me the lock was rusted. That I could walk out. That I didn't need to wait for someone else to open the door. The priest raised his hand in blessing, voice low and quick in Latin. When he finished, he placed a copper ring in August's palm. It's all I have, he said. Use it well. They left the chapel as the snow fell faster, cloaking their footprints behind them. August took her hand, and this time, neither of them let go. The snow deepened by morning, layering the Styrian hills in silence. Only the stream murmured beneath its frozen skin, and the breath of two travelers clouded the air as they moved eastward, hidden by frost-laced thickets and the low shadows of pine. The copper ring sat snug on August's finger, warmed from his skin. Saphira hadn't asked for one of her own. She didn't need it. They reached a narrow pass before noon, where a shepherd's hut slouched beneath a collapsed roof. Smoke rose from its chimney, thin and uncertain. A boy with a hair slung over his shoulder stood outside, sharpening a knife against a rock. He glanced up but said nothing. August stepped forward, voice low. "We need rest. Just for an hour." The boy tilted his head. His eyes flicked to Saphira's gown, still pinned at the hem with a brass clasp from the chapel's offering box. Then to the satchel. "Food?" "Barley and one figure." The boy jerked his chin toward the door. Inside, it was warmer than expected. A woman sat on a stool near the hearth, stirring something in a tin pot. Her face was lined, but her eyes were steady. "Sit," she said without turning. They did. Steam curled from the pot, carrying the scent of garlic and parsley. Saphira closed her eyes, just once, letting the warmth spread through her limbs. She hadn't realized her fingers were trembling. "You're not from here," the woman said. "No," August replied. "You're being pursued." Neither answered. She ladled stew into two dented bowls and handed them over. "Eat. Then go toward the silver birch grove. There's a man named Luca who trades in ink and silence. He owes me." Saphira met her eyes. "Why are you helping us?" The woman tapped her ladle against the pot. "Because I remember what it felt like to choose someone the world said I shouldn't." They ate in silence. When they rose to leave, the woman handed August a folded wool wrap. "It won't stop a sword, but it'll keep out the cold." Outside, the boy stood watching the sky. "Snow's thickest near the border," he said. "But if you follow the fox tracks, they'll lead you to the pass." Saphira placed the last pearl from her pouch in his palm. He didn't thank her. He just closed his hand and turned back to his rabbit. By evening, the wind had shifted. The snow no longer fell straight but drifted sideways, sharp and needled. They followed the fox tracks, as the boy had said, and by nightfall reached a slope where the trees thinned and the path forked. August paused. "This is where we choose." Saphira looked between the two trails. One curved downward, toward the lowlands and towns with proper roofs and names that would appear on maps. The other rose higher, into fog and shadow, a game trail at best. "We take the high path," she said. "Why?" "The low path is where I'd have been taken if I'd been caught. It's where they'll look." They climbed in silence. The air grew thinner. By the time they reached a shelf of rock wide enough to rest, it was full dark. They didn't light a fire. Instead, August unwrapped the wool blanket and pulled it over them both. Saphira leaned into his shoulder, the slope of his collarbone firm beneath her cheek. "You never asked me what I feared," she said. "I didn't want to hear something I couldn't protect you from." She looked up at him, the faint light from the stars catching in his lashes. It wasn't being caught. Or even being punished. What, then? Being forgotten. Being a name someone says with pity. He cupped her cheek, his thumb rough against her skin. "I'll never let them speak of you with anything less than awe. No one will believe you." "They don't have to." She touched the ring on his hand. "It's strange. I never imagined my life after the palace. I never allowed myself to. And now? I see earth under my nails. And a doorstep worn smooth by years. I see us." He didn't speak. He didn't need to. They rose before dawn and continued along the ridge. By midday, the frost gave way to mud, and the trees changed beech giving way to oak, the air warmer. They reached a settlement of low, red-roofed homes tucked against a hillside. No guards. No sigils. No whisper of Vienna's reach. A wooden sign hung over one door, "Luca, Ink and Stationery." Inside, the air smelled of paper and turpentine. A man with ink-stained fingers looked up from a ledger. "You're early," he said. "We're not staying," August replied. "Then what do you need?" "Passage. South. Papers. Names." Luca closed the book. "It'll cost more than coin." Saphira stepped forward and placed the garnet ring on the counter. "My name is Saphira Alden. The Emperor's daughter. This is the last of what I carried from that life. I give it freely." Luca studied her. Then he reached for a drawer beneath the counter and pulled out a blank ledger. "You'll be Miriam and Theo Weiss. Married 2 years. Traveling to Trieste for work. You were cloth merchants. You lost your last shipment to thieves." August nodded. "We'll remember." Luca handed over a folded parchment and a sealed envelope. "Give this to the dockmaster in Cesana. He'll get you on the freight line." Saphira took it. "No one will follow us?" "They'll follow you," Luca said. "But they'll be days behind." "Why help us?" He glanced at the garnet once more. "Because I remember when she wore that. And I know how you came by it." They left before the hour turned, walking south as the sun dipped low, casting the world in bronze. When they reached the edge of the settlement, August took her hand again. "You were never unseen," he said. "They just looked at you wrong." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The road ahead was long. But it no longer led backward.